Animula Nook is an upcoming cozy life simulation game where you're shrunk down to a tiny size and get to explore the world from a new perspective. The team just recently concluded their very first alpha playtest to get the game into players' hands and receive valuable feedback. So now, what's next for Animula Nook? Hello friends, Sarah Sunstone here, and welcome back to Thinking Out Loud. In today's episode, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the official letter shared from the developers of Animula Nook after the conclusion of the game's first alpha test. We'll be diving into topics like building and decorating, controls, hobbies, content expansion, and more. Please go ahead and shine the lovely like button if you're excited for Animula Nook to let me know, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel with your notifications on to stay in the loop. Otherwise, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So this alpha test gave us a preview of what we can expect for Animula Nook from a gameplay standpoint, keeping in mind that it is still earlier in development and we will likely see the game go through many different changes before it reaches its final product. I did stream as much of the alpha as I could, so if you'd like to see some gameplay for yourself, I'll have a dedicated playlist with plenty of Animula Nook content linked in the description for your reference. With this official statement from the team post-alpha test, they shared that they've been hearing everyone's feedback and suggestions, which they're weaving into their notes for development. Now, the first major piece of feedback that the team has addressed is on the topic of visuals. Specifically, players want to see more details with more natural lighting and textures. The team responded to this by sharing that the current art style is still evolving, balancing high-end visuals with smooth performance, taking frame rate, memory, and power consumption into consideration across different PC setups is a delicate challenge, and some effects haven't reached their ideal state just yet. But they are optimizing across several core layers. So the first being models and textures, elaborating that in a miniature world, everyday objects are magnified, so they will be completely overhauling scenery models and textures with high precision details to ensure every corner stands up to close inspection. Apparently, the character models for minis will also be further polished to enhance the overall visual quality. Next, they will also be optimizing materials and details, so they will be introducing specialized material upgrades for complex elements like hair, water, and unique objects. And third, they will also be further optimizing the lighting and atmosphere, so they're exploring lighting styles that better fit the vibe of Minitopia, a process which requires extensive tuning and may take some time to perfect, likely reaching its final form by the official launch. Now, given the fact that this was an alpha test, I do expect to see more visual polish before the full release. I personally feel like alpha tests are a little bit more for the purpose of getting feedback on the gameplay mechanics themselves, to make sure they feel good for players, and also that the different realms of the game are engaging and fun. Maybe also to see how their servers hold for players when it's an online game. But things like optimizing textures and the way the game runs on different systems, all of that, I feel like is always constantly being worked on. And especially with optimizations, a lot of that doesn't get done until later on in the pipeline for game development, at least from my understanding. I was actually really impressed at how great the alpha looked, considering we had really only seen CGI trailers for the game up until the alpha, and I feel like the style matches quite closely to what was shown off in the cinematic trailers. And again, keeping in mind that the game is running online on a server, but this category of features I do expect to see evolving over the course of development, and I imagine the game will have a bit of a different look by the time we get to the full release in terms of polish and visual quality. Now, the next piece of major feedback is on the topic of controls. So specifically, walking and running should feel more fluid, and the camera controls and overall handling need to be more comfortable. So the team responded to this by stating that they are reconstructing their core 3C systems, 3C being character, controls, and camera, from the ground up. So this includes overhauling their movement and collision logic to ensure a more natural, grounded feel. And by our next meeting, meaning the next time we play the game, players will find that moving and playing in Minitopia has become much more natural and fluid. I am definitely happy to hear about the movement and collision logic being overhauled, because there were a lot of times where I think actually for most of the game, my player was hovering like a little bit above the ground, so the collision was a little bit off there. Again, playing the alpha, I imagined that this would be changed for the full release, but it is nice to see that they've addressed that here. I personally really like the walking animation, but I would like to see an intermediate between walking and skateboarding, because In the alpha, skateboarding was kind of like your sprinting mechanic, so if you wanted to go faster, you had to go on the skateboard. I'd really like to see a little jog or a sprint, so it's not just one extreme or the other. Controls were pretty nice overall in my opinion, but the main thing I noticed that I think needs some fine-tuning for controls relates to the camera specifically, so it could be a little bit finicky when decorating, and then also the sensitivity for camera movement when you're just exploring was a little bit off, so even if you set it to the highest sensitivity, the camera would pan quite slowly. So you could just get used to it, but it is nice to be able to shift the camera around in a little bit more of a snappy way. So I would love to see some adjustments made here. I think they'd be very much appreciated. And again, I almost feel like it's probably a given that they're working on fine-tuning these things, especially now that they have the additional feedback from players. Next, they also addressed feedback on the topic of building. So specifically, players wondered why pre-built houses and can the construction tools be more convenient? So first, regarding pre-built houses, the team explained that they'd like to share their original thinking. So based on their research before the test, they understood that every wish weaver has their own pace. Not everyone enjoys or has the time to gather materials and build every structure from scratch. So to balance the needs of different players within the limited test period, they opted for a system that combines pre-built houses with free-form components. These pre-built houses act as a stepping stone to help you settle in during the early stages, providing a solid foundation for future expansions and decorations. Now, this approach also ensured that everyone had enough time to experience other features during the test, and with that said, they've already introduced a vast array of building blocks, railings, and floor tiles for those who want to build freely. In the future, they will introduce components with even greater creative freedom, such as individual walls and ceilings, allowing you to craft larger and more personalized homes. Then regarding tools, in terms of construction operations, they are continuously refining the core interaction experience, including aiming precision, camera control, and movement speed within the building mode. High-demand features like undo, redo, batch operations, search filters, and alignment assistance are officially on their roadmap to make building as effortless as playing with blocks. So I have a lot of thoughts actually on this topic. I personally really like the pre-built houses. Would I like to see the option to customize aspects of the exterior? Sure. Maybe different colorways, different decorations, that would be nice. Or even just different styles and aesthetics that take advantage of the real-world objects. You already saw some of this in the alpha, like there were gingerbread houses, there were paper houses, but maybe they could expand on that further with, like a house in a mason jar with twinkle lights, just to give different feels. Again, they already had some of that to choose from, but of course, I'd always love to see more. I really appreciated not having to figure out how to build my own house and just having something to start out with. I like the idea of having different houses to unlock and choose from, like house skins essentially. And I also really liked having the additional materials to work with when building. So there were different types of fencing, there were different types of pathways, like you can literally make a cookie path, it's so cute. There were building blocks that you could place as ramps or stairs, and I absolutely loved how the fencing would actually snap to the edges of those ramps and steps. I thought that was really nice for quality of life. There were different platforms that you could use to set houses on top of or just decorate on top of if you wanted different layers in your builds. So they do have a lot of things to work with already, even in the alpha, and it sounds like they're going to be expanding on that to the point where you're going to be able to create more personalized home structures with much more precise customization. I did previously mention I think some of the construction and decorating controls could be improved just to make it feel a little bit more fluid. I think it would be nice to have the camera zoomed out more, or the option to zoom out more with your camera. I'd like the camera to open in the direction that your player is facing rather than always the direction of the desk. So like little things like that would definitely be nice to see, just so it's a little bit more of a seamless and effortless process of decorating and building. It seems like they've got a lot of really valuable feedback here for this realm of the game. And I do think this realm of the game is going to be something that is such a core system where we're going to be wanting to decorate and customize our homestead over and over again. We're going to want to unlock new furniture and do new builds and expand to new areas. You know, the desk, the balcony, the terrarium, and do different builds in each area with different minis and such. So I do think nailing the design and the building will be a pretty big deal for this game, and it's already such a impressive standout feature in my opinion with what I experienced, and I can see where some tweaks can be made just to make it even better. So it's great to hear they are focusing on improving that in terms of customization and controls, and I can't wait to see what they end up, coming up with once we get to the full release. Then the team addressed feedback on topics of optimization, the UI, which is the user interface, so different menus that you're going through when you're playing the game, and also guidance. So specifically, the feedback was, the game is too heavy for many devices, and there's insufficient guidance. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. So first of all, we'll talk about optimization. The team shared that achieving smooth performance across a vast range of hardware is a universal challenge, but it's one they've been committed to. So the reality of PC gaming is that hardware specs vary drastically, and this requires them to dive deep into testing and fine-tuning, often making tough calls to find that perfect balance between breathtaking visuals and smooth performance. This alpha test has provided them with a massive amount of invaluable data to guide those decisions, and moving forward, they are forming a dedicated technical optimization task force specifically to tackle feedback on stuttering, overheating, and frame drops. They've also heard concerns about high-spec requirements, but they ask players to please rest assured they're working hard to lower these barriers and ensure Minitopia is optimized for a much wider range of devices. Now, before we move on to the UI and guidance topic, I just want to reiterate that this is an alpha test, and alpha beta tests just will often have higher requirements because the game isn't optimized yet to the extent that it will be for the full release. So just because your system didn't meet requirements for this alpha test does not mean it won't for the full release. And also keep in mind that the game will be coming to consoles, so PC isn't your only option for playing. So then on the topic of the user interface and guidance, they shared that they're revamping the new player experience, including clearer task instructions and more intuitive menu navigation. So many of these improvements are already in development and will be revealed soon. On this topic, honestly, I can't really comment too much because I, first of all, absolutely adore the UI design. I think it's such a standout for the game, even being in its alpha stage. It's beautiful, it's juicy, the artwork is great. It just looks and feels lovely. In terms of guidance, I also personally had no difficulties figuring out what to do. I mean, I'm sure some quest lines could be further polished and they could add more hand-holding throughout the game if they wanted to, but I just personally can't relate to this statement from my experience. I do think one thing that would improve this experience, that's not exactly a lack of guidance, is actually just introducing more quest lines. This alpha was more open, it was more kind of get oriented, get onboarded, and then play around with the different systems. It didn't have the continuation of a main story for much past the introduction. So I think honestly just adding more of those main quests and side quests that were a little bit more story oriented and character specific would help guide players to what to do next. Because it was more of a sandbox experience in the alpha once you got past those initial, arrive at your desk and meet the initial characters kind of quest line. So I do think you might be surprised how much more guidance you will feel that you have just once they expand the quest lines. Now, next up, the team addressed feedback regarding gameplay and content expansion. So the specific feedback was, I want more to do. I'd love more minis and more activities. So the team shared that for our next meeting, or the next time we play the game, Minitopia will undergo a massive expansion. And this involves a lot. So let's just go in order. First will be exclusive miniature experiences. So more gathering, more exploration, and more interactive gameplay designed specifically for the shrunk down perspective. I've really raved about the resource gathering mechanics in Animula Nook because they are so unique. There's so many unique things to collect and unique ways to collect those things. It's very charming, it's very enjoyable, it's very rewarding, and there's also lots to do with the resources that you gather. Now, I did say this on my stream, so some of you are already familiar with my take on all of this, but to me it does really feel like they gave us a sample of the game. They gave us a portion of the Whoopa Woods to explore. They gave us a few quests. They gave us some furniture to work with when decorating. They gave us a look at some of the minis. I don't think this is really reflective of what the full scope of the game is going to be, nor would I want that to be the case. I don't want to meet all the minis in the alpha test. I don't want to explore all the different maps and biomes and gather all the resources in the alpha test. I don't want to be able to unlock all of the furniture that I can decorate with and all of the clothes in the alpha test. I really think this is a sample and they're going to expand on everything for the full release. Otherwise, it truly would just be too spoilery, and it wouldn't make sense for them to develop so much of the game without first getting that feedback if that's something that they want to implement. So I think we're going to have more ways to gather resources in more areas of the world, more things to do with those resources, just more of everything essentially. And that is kind of the vibe I'm getting here as well from what they're sharing. So they're also going to be upgrading the mini system. So new races of minis with unique backgrounds will join the world. And they're also going to be adding more vivid interactions and exclusive stories to unlock as your friendships grow. I think that would be great. I absolutely love, so far my favorite minis are the doll-like minis, so the kind of human-like ones, and then also the little bunnies. But there's some of the owls I really like too. There were wolf-like and dog-like minis too. I only really connected with one that was a fox kind of design. The others I didn't really connect with personally, but I would love to see them expand on the different types of animals and different types of like little mini toy characters that we'll interact with. And I think, we saw more in the trailer too that we didn't get to see in the alpha, like the little critters that are made out of like building blocks almost. And there were some cat-like minis as well in the trailers. So I'm sure there's going to be more for us to encounter in the full release. I don't think they wanted to spoil all of that for us in the alpha once again, so I'm glad they didn't. They're also going to be expanding the Wish Weaver growth system, which will be a redesigned level up system to help you document your life in the miniature world. So your memories will be captured in a story written by you. So it seems like they're going to expand on just the simple, level up system where you level up and unlock new rewards at each level. It seems like they're trying to add some more depth and meaning to it, which I think would be really nice to see. They're also going to be refining the life skills. So that includes performance with better rhythm detection and more music scores. The cooking hobby. So apparently they're going to do a total overhaul of the cooking hobby, including batch production. That'll be interesting to see because I actually really liked the direction of the cooking system, but I'm always open to, if they have a better idea they want to implement, I'd definitely be open to seeing what that's going to be. They're also going to be refining planting and dancing with smoother controls for both hobbies and also more variety in crops and choreography. I personally would love to see what they decide to do with the performance and dancing hobbies. I connected most with construction, cooking, and planting. Like I understood what I was doing, why I was doing it, I was motivated to do it, and I felt rewarded when I would engage with those hobbies. With music performance and dance, as fun and adorable as it is, especially taking multiplayer into consideration, I personally don't know how much I would engage with those hobbies because I don't know what the end goal is or what the reward is, or if it's literally just the process of enjoyment, which it very much could be because it should be about the process and the mechanics themselves more so than the rewards. But let's be honest, we all like to be rewarded from our gameplay. So if there was some sort of event or festival that we're working our way towards performing at, for example, with the minis, that could be fun. If this could be incorporated into questing, where maybe a mini is trying to remember a song that they grew up with and you can play it for them, and then, that kind of progresses the quest line. I would definitely like to see those specific hobbies incorporated in a more meaningful way, I guess, to motivate us as players to actually participate in them. But that's just my opinion. So I'm curious to see where they take those. They also shared that they're going to be introducing a photography system, and it's currently in the works. So soon you'll be able to capture every magical moment in Minitopia. And I definitely found that this was missing. At least for me, I like to take a lot of photos in the games that I play and capture the moments. So a photo mode would be absolutely amazing. And then finally in this category, they shared that they're also going to be expanding on social and adventure elements in the game. So they're going to be adding more ways to connect with friends, from co-op toys and emotes to a smoother, punchier combat feel in the Demeter Ascent for those seeking a fun challenge. This is actually a lot of varied mechanics just grouped all together. I love the idea of co-op toys, maybe similar to the rock, paper, scissors toy that they already have, and like bubbles and light sticks and things like that. It would actually be really, really charming if there were full-on placeable toys that you could have on your homestead. I'm thinking like little mini amusement park rides, or even something as simple as a seesaw that you could enjoy with other minis or your friends. I think those could be fun too. I feel like they have a ton of amazing emotes already, so I definitely did not feel the need for any more, but if they want to add more, I won't be upset. But I do definitely think that the combat in Demeter Ascent does need some fine-tuning. I actually love the idea of these dungeon runs. I love the blueprint for it, but I would love to see it further refined, especially like the combat does feel a little bit slower and floaty, so it'd be nice for it to feel more tactile and a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive. But as someone who does really like that kind of a mechanic, I'm really excited to see what they evolve it into, and if they're going to do other maps with different themes and maybe even different rewards. I only got to try it out by myself, but I think it would be really fun to do with friends as well. And then finally, the team addressed just other frequent feedback, which covered some miscellaneous topics. So first up here is the Whoop-A-Cat. So they are planning a Whoopa companionship system so your fluffy friend can play a bigger, more meaningful role in your daily life. And honestly, I'm so happy to hear this because I really felt like this was lacking just based off of my expectations of what the Whoopa cat was going to be for us. They were presented as this companion in the trailer. They were always at our side. And then in the alpha test, you don't see them at all after you make your first selection, except for in a couple of the beginning cutscenes, and then when you deploy them as your glider. I would love to have the option for them to follow you around or have them at your homestead with their own little house, their own little toys, things that they can interact with while you're also at home and decorating and visiting with your minis. I definitely wanted to see them more. I wanted maybe the option even to get little accessories and cosmetics for them that you again would see outside of just when they're deployed as your glider. Because if you didn't know, you use your Whoopa cat as a glider, you like hang from their tail and you can float around with them, which is adorable and I love that mechanic. But yeah, I just want to see more. And it would be interesting actually, because based on what they're calling a Whoopa companionship system, I do wonder if they're going to add something where you almost level up with your Whoopa. So maybe you can pet them, maybe you can give them snacks, buy them little toys and furniture. And over time, as you grow your bond with them, maybe you'll also level that up and unlock unique rewards there too, like those cosmetics, like other toys, like other abilities or interactions. I think that would be really sweet to see, and I would love to see them emphasize that specific relationship in the game, because even if you invite, other minis to live in your homestead, even if you go interact with other players, that Whoopa companion is the one that is always by your side. So I would love to see more focus on that for sure, and I'm excited to hear that they are prioritizing that. Next up for miscellaneous items is the day-night cycle. They shared that the technical side for this is ready, but they are fine-tuning the art to make sure that nighttime in Minitopia feels truly magical and that it'll be worth the wait. This is actually something that I was super curious about playing the alpha because it was perpetual daytime for me, and I wasn't sure if it was just the server I was playing on or if it was like that for everyone. I also had my minis were going to bed at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon in my local time zone, so a lot of times when I was playing, all my minis were already sleeping, and unfortunately I couldn't interact with them. So I am really excited to see the worlds, be living, breathing, have that day-night cycle, have those seasons, even on your desktop. It's interesting to think about how that will be implemented. They showed a little peek in the trailer of what winter could look like, but I'm curious to see how they move through the different seasons as well as day and night. And then the final miscellaneous topic was character visuals. So the team shared that they have heard player feedback on certain facial features looking a bit off. So they are adjusting those to make avatars look more natural and endearing. I'm not sure exactly which facial features they're referencing here, but it's good to know that they are taking in whatever feedback was provided about those features to adjust them. My main focus, honestly, with the character customization in terms of the avatar itself was actually more so that I would just like to see a little bit more available from the beginning. I do realize a lot of what we'll be able to customize with will unlock later on, and I'm not talking clothes or anything like that. I think there's a great variety of clothes that you can start out with, and then there'll be tons more to unlock as you progress through the game. But I would like to see more hairstyles, a couple more skin tones, and maybe a few more facial feature options. I did share some more specifics in my dedicated video with an overview of everything that was included in the alpha, so if you want to see the initial character customization and the options that become available thereafter, along with my thoughts on the specifics that I would like to see added, you can go check that out for sure. But the team wrapped up by saying this is just a glimpse of what's coming. The game is still very much a seedling that has just sprouted, but with the care from the community, they know that Minitopia will grow into something beautiful. So overall, I clearly have a lot of thoughts. I tried to keep them as concise as possible. I could probably talk about what I would like to see and what I love about Animula Nook for hours and hours, but I came out of the alpha test feeling very hopeful and very optimistic about the future of the game. I felt very good and confident in a lot of the systems they already have at play, and just knowing that they're going to be working to fine-tune everything and expand everything is exactly what I envision for the future of the game. But please feel free to share your thoughts with me down in the comments. What was a standout feature for you from the game, and what would you like to see added? Anything and everything, I always love hearing from you. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and until next time, take care.